Hey, this is MG Govia. I'm the Education and Outreach Liaison of Okie A11, and I'm also the host of today's podcast. I got some really great news. I have a really great guest. Today's going to be a lot of fun. First thing I want to let you know is today is going to be our first video recording of the podcast as well. So we're going to have this available for you on YouTube. So if you catch it on wherever you find podcasts, know that if you want to see our faces, you can go to YouTube and check out that video as well. Also, today is a big day. We are going to officially name our podcast. Our podcast, since the inception, has been Okie 811's podcast. And today, we're going to officially give it a new name. You are listening to Digging Deep with Okie 811. So I'm really glad you're with us. This is the first episode of Digging Deep with Okie 811, and our guest today is Jason Crowe with Green Equipment Company. Jason, you mind telling us a little bit about you?
Thank you, MG. Yes, again, I'm Jason Crowe with Green Equipment Company. I've been in the industry of oil and gas, damage prevention, and sort for a total of over 20 years now. I've been focused on damage prevention and asset integrity management for 13 years now. When people ask me, what is it I do for a living? I tell them that I equip and I train the unseen, unsung superheroes of this world. I usually get a lot of these like, what is that? So how do I do that? Is I provide equipment for line locating, leak detection, external corrosion assessment, camera inspection equipment. I provide this equipment, but I also make sure these people know how to use it. So all the people that provide the utilities to your home, the electric folks that are allowing us to fire up our laptops to do this meeting, the telecom folks that are allowing us to communicate over Wi-Fi, the water folks that are allowing us to have a cold drink of water while we're talking, the wastewater folks, all those people is who I serve. Pipeline transmission folks, the contractors that are associated with those markets, not just the asset owners, but those people that are working around those utilities, are working with those utilities. Those are the people that I serve, and those are the people that I provide equipment and train.
Awesome. One thing that I'm really excited about with this is that you were a guest with us last year. You and I have a shared passion for damage prevention and excavation safety. That's one reason that I lean on you as a mentor in this industry. We've known each other a little bit over 2 years now, but I feel like I've known you forever, and I trust your guidance and your expertise out there where in the field, and then helping me with my messaging as well. So I really appreciate that, and thank you so much for being a return guest to our podcast and the, like I said, newly branded Digging Deep with Okie 811. Today's topics, we were talking a little bit before we hit the record button that we were going to be talking about the human element. It's really easy to talk about damage prevention and excavation safety and start talking about rules and regulations and stats and numbers and just really kind of lose track of the human element of this industry. I read a quote. It's unique that it crossed my path because of who the quote belongs to, but Joseph Stalin once observed that a death of one is a tragedy and a death of 1,000,000 is a statistic. And that just kind of blows me away. It hits home. Yeah, it hits home so quick. It's kind of like here in Oklahoma, we went through that winter storm, snow everywhere, people were going without electric and stuff like that. And it kind of dawned on me, like in previous storms and stuff that's happened, maybe a tornado came through or something a little bit more isolated, like a power outage of a friend. And when it's small and isolated, it's like, oh man, I can't believe that happened. You kind of get caught up in the emotion of it. But when an entire state like Texas, I mean, it was so, the problems that were going down in Texas, it was hard to fathom a storyline. It was just everybody. It was just, unfortunately, a statistic. And I know that the correlation is going to be a little bit of a stretch for some, but when you put a story to the event, an individual, somebody who's without power, then saying a state is without power, it's similar to saying an excavator got hurt instead of saying excavators get hurt yearly because of this issue or that.
Absolutely. MG, you hit the nail on the head there. it's unfortunate that in our industry that we get desensitized to these things. Like you said,
Mhm.
Stalin's is a statistic. We hear about these things, unfortunately, far too often, and we don't get those stories all the time behind all of that. So therefore, we don't necessarily always see the impact to the individuals. And that's the big reason why you and I want to have a conversation today that we can put forth and share with people, to really start sharing those stories, to stress the importance of safe digging. So I know you've got some stories from your experience. I've got stories from mine, but I know those are the things that really drive us, both you and I as individuals in this business, on different sides of the cube, so to speak, to really do what we do the way we do it.
Mhm.
You know, so I know, did you have a story you wanted to share out the gate, or do you want me to jump into one? Or
Well, one thing that I've learned in the last year is that the phrase "why" is really important. Why do we do something? Why are we doing what we do? And that's actually the topic that I'm going to be doing in our conference. Unfortunately, viewers and listeners, our conference will have already taken place. But I go and check that out, find it. It'll be on our website or our YouTube channel. We'll get that to you. But why we do what we do is really important. Something as I was brainstorming and outlining and trying to prepare my presentation for the conference, I got really focused on all the what's and how's. This is what you do. This is how you do it. This is where the law says this. This is what you're having to do. And if you do these things, you'll be safe, or you won't get in trouble or whatever. And I get caught up in that.
it becomes mechanical. I understand.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, it's a law, right? There's a law of the Oklahoma Underground.
Very finite. Absolutely.
Right. And so you kind of get caught up in this what, how, and you want to explain it so that people just walk away and they go, well, they can't walk away and say they didn't understand how the law is written, or they can't walk away and not know what it says.
Absolutely.
But now I almost have a different mindset, and I promise anybody who's looking to get training from OK 811, we're still going to tell you a lot about the what and hows, but here's the thing that we're adding to it, and it's a personal mission of mine, is adding the why. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I don't mean like just a story about somebody who got hurt or somebody who didn't come back to work. What I'm stressing is, if I get my audience member to go, well, this is why I need to be safe. I need to be safe so that I can provide for my family and my friends. I need to be safe so that a community isn't without utilities. I need to be safe so that my employer can stay in business, so I don't have to worry about looking for another job. If I can focus on the whys, here's the beauty of whys. If the why is strong enough, which it should be, when I'm talking about life and death, when I'm talking about your job, when I'm talking about providing, the why should be strong enough that you'll go find out the how yourself. Oh, now I know why I need to be safe. So now I need to go find out how to be safe. Oh, now I'm going to go sign up for that line locating class that Jason's throwing. Oh, and now I'm going to go to that OSHA 10 class. Now I'm going to go to that excavation safety trenching class. I'm going to find out the hows, because I now know how important that why is. And so that's where my human element comes in. There's so much more that is there, but that's like almost probably too many words to describe it, but that's the central focus of it.
You said it very well. Is, it's very easy to get caught up in mechanics of things, whether it's all the legalese in OK 811 or the proper steps in using a line locator. It's very easy to get in the mechanical side of things. And those people that know me know I'm a bit of an over communicator. I own that. Mm-hmm. I own it totally. And when I teach a class, I tell people at the beginning, I say, I'm going to give you a lot of information in a short period of time, and I can expect everybody to remember these things. In fact, I'd be surprised if you did. But the three things I want you to remember is, number one, we're going to go over the basic theory, and this is a line locate class, on how these things work. Number two, the basic functionality of how the buttons and the mechanics, if you will, of the equipment. And number three, get you comfortable calling me as you have questions. And I say, now this isn't a reason to check out and update your Twitter feed and, update your Facebook status or whatever you want to do, but know that you've got that resource, that you've got that partner here working with you. You're not just buying a piece of equipment. You've got someone here you can lean to as you've got those questions. So I think you've really hit the nail on the head. I share a story in all the training classes I give, and I shared a lot of these different speaking engagements I do, just so people understand the why I do things. So when they do call at 10 o'clock on a Friday night and they're out there doing that emergency locate and something doesn't look right, why chances are I'm going to answer that phone and we're going to talk through it and make sure, everything's marked as best as we can. So, yeah, it's understanding the why. And I think that applies to a lot of areas of our lives, really. I mean, if we have a good reason understanding why things are done in a certain way or why things are done, then we're going to figure out the how, as you said. So,
yeah, absolutely. Let's take a step back for a second. Let's step away from damage prevention and safe excavation. You and I also professionally, we turn to each other just for professional development. Absolutely. Hey, what's something new you learned this week? Absolutely. Hey, how can I better do my job? And it's not so much just the excavation, safety, and damage prevention, in which that's my calling card. That's what I want people to know me as. But hey, man, how about just being a good coworker? Hey, how about just being an influence on your neighbor and doing things that are in the community that can stand out? And if you understand your why, your purpose, waking up and doing the best you can for those factors, man, life just gets, I won't say easier. I'll never say easier, but it just makes it make sense. It's just
a whole new level of clarity, I think, with that. I mean, you and I both have a passion for personal development, and you and I have had some great talks about our stories and our past and things that have impacted us one way or the other. And in some ways, we've walked some parallel lines there, and it's interesting to see how we've both kind of dealt with certain things, but we both have that constant drive to be better in some way or another. And I think we both really have a servant's heart and have a goal of leaving some kind of positive mark here on earth, right, whatever that looks like, whether it's in damage prevention or other areas in our lives. Being a good dad, those things all fall into play. So
absolutely. One conversation we were talking about as we were prepping for this is that collaboration and that trust that we have within those relationships that we build. Man, I don't know how many times I get a phone call and they're like, hey, MG, you're at 811. You should know this. How does a locator work? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me call Jason. Because that's the end
about it, right, brother? We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to be the guy that knows everything, but it helps to know that, hey, I'm a person that's got resources. And when you take the time to make those contacts and get to truly understand yourself and align yourself with the right people, because unfortunately there's not always right people. Not everybody has such a pure purpose, or a pure goal in helping others. But when you do align yourselves with the right people, I think you truly feel that, and you have faith in asking the question. And most importantly, if they don't have the answer, they're going to shoot you straight and say, I don't know, but we'll find it.
Yeah. So, that was one of the biggest things that I found is being okay saying I don't know. Because, hey, I'll admit I want to be the trivia king. I want to be able to show you how smart I am. But, when it comes to establishing relationships, almost saying I don't know is the most trusting thing and vulnerable thing anybody can say. Because once you say that, I've earned the trust of that person. You and I have had a conversation, and I can't remember the exact example, but I know you've said, I don't know. And when I hear that, I'm like, cool, this person I can trust because they're not going to tell me a lie. Like, why not just say, I don't know again, if it ever happens again? And that helps tremendously when looking to network and to build your relationships. One thing with the OK811, our role is a very, literally a middleman between our member companies who own and operate those underground facilities, and then our excavators who are calling in locate requests and to get those lines marked. And then there's like these one-offs. We also have the communication with the locating companies that are third party. We have communication with associations like the Oklahoma Gas Association or Rural Water Association and others. I have relationships with some vendors and sustaining members like yourself. And the one thing that I strive for in getting to know those networks is how are they a resource? Not how are they a company, what money are they providing? What knowledge are they bringing? What passion are they bringing? how are we all moving forward with damage prevention and safe excavation? And that's huge. If you can figure out how to align yourself in whatever role with your primary passion, those connections really pay off.
Absolutely. And it's not just how are they a resource, to me, but better yet, how can I be a resource to them? Because if we go back around to what we're talking about when it comes to damage prevention and communication piece of it that you deal with, and the equipment side of things that I deal with, ultimately at the end of the day, we're taking people's lives in our hands, and that's the reality of it. If I was to circle back and redo my intro about, well, Jason, what is it you do for green equipment? If you get on my LinkedIn, or my Instagram, I tell people, if someone asks, what do you do? I equip and I train the unseen, unsung superheroes of this world. And I truly believe that. I mean,
that's so true.
That are keeping your water flowing, that are keeping your sewers clean, that are providing the electricity to our homes so we can do this particular recording, the telecom folks that are providing the Wi-Fi, those are the people that I serve. And again, I see them as the unseen, unsung superheroes, because we kind of take this stuff for granted. Because we just have it. You flip the switch, unless, you're in Texas, a week or so ago, and unfortunately you didn't have electricity, you didn't have heat, whatever. But it's those moments we remember those folks, but it's the other, 51 weeks a year, it's just automatic. So when we're taking lives in our hands, I mean, that's pretty serious stuff. So, I mean, again, a greater sense of why, or greater sense of purpose, and again, looking to serve those organizations. I mean, like you mentioned, the OGA, the OMA, rural water here in the state, whether it's communications with you or communications with those folks, like we've talked about some joint training you and I have, right? Me utilizing your field of expertise and the communication piece of OK 811 in the training classes I give, again, how can I serve those in industry? So.
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people, when they talk to me, like, oh yeah, you're the call before you dig guy. Man, it's one, kind of cool to be known for that.
Yeah.
But B, that's not everything.
No.
Because hey, if I'm done with the presentation and I walk away and everybody in that room knows they need to call before they dig, that's a good start. My CSRs will take them across the finish line. The line locators are going to tell them where the stuff is. They're that's the starting point. But my thing is, and so do you, when you understand the size and breadth of exactly what our industry is, we're all moving it forward. Whether it's the utility company and their practices on safe construction and then the line locating to keep it safe, the excavators coming in to work safely around it, the consumer who understands, hey, when I put that tree in my backyard, I'm still at risk of damaging something underground. Like, there's just this huge thing that we're all doing. Even like you said, and I feel like I'm kind of beating up on it, but it's important. We're on a conference call, both working from home right now.
Yeah.
And if anything in this big industry, this big spider web of damage prevention went wrong, we may not be able to do this meeting at all. Exactly. And so it's important to know that we're all in this industry and we're so connected, and to use and utilize those connections as best as we can to, like I said, keep it moving forward. It's really cool and neat to know that we're a part of that. I know that earlier when we were talking also, you're telling me a story about being able to trust and be able to rely on your connections.
That's the thing. Before we decided to record this podcast, I reached out to my counterparts within the organization I work for and just put a little blurb out there. Say, hey guys, if there's any stories that, resonate in your mind as something that's transpired over your years with Green Equipment Company, regarding damage prevention and maybe an incident that just something stood out, share it with me. And I had some responses, and I mean, we've all had a lot of different experiences, but there's one guy I work with in particular who was working with a particular customer and helping them with some training on their line locator, I think a week or two prior. And then I think a week after that customer was out doing a line locate, was having some struggles, and he was 6 hours from the location of where this customer was, and he had asked him to go through this little checklist with him on the phone of, what's the frequency you're on, how are you getting a signal on the line, what's the current reading you are getting on your transmitter, and then lastly he asked him, he goes, where's the far end of that line, and is it grounded? Well, the guy's going through the checklist. He goes, oh yeah, it's grounded, absolutely. Well, the guy continued to fuss and cuss about it, has his boss out there. Well, my counterpart, that afternoon, he ends up changes his entire schedule around for the next day, drives home 6 hours that night to go with this gentleman and his boss, and he's over there troubleshooting it first thing in the morning, trying all these things on the checklist. Lastly, he goes, hey, do me a favor. Can you go show me the far end of that line? Let me just go see it real quick. So they hop in the truck and they drive a quarter mile down the road, and guess what? There it is, sticking up out of the ground. So the reason why I share that story is, this counterpart of mine could have saved 12 hours of travel, but more importantly, that asset owner could have taken the 5, 10, 15 minutes to go down there and check the far end of that line, because my counterpart just ran a little jumper wire and the screwdriver in the ground and just boom, lit the line up, and it located just perfectly.
Yeah,
the asset owner would have been able to be more proactive in taking care of that line locating. They could have got that job started, a day sooner, but that wasn't the case. So when you do find those people that you trust, when you do find those people that you can count on, that have the knowledge, trust their knowledge, but when they ask you to do something, please go do it. Because,
right.
One of the crazy questions, they'll ask me, man, my locator's not turning on. And it sounds silly, but I ask it every time. Can you do me a favor and check and make sure the batteries are put in correct? Lord knows I put the batteries in wrong in certain things all the time.
Right.
And it's interesting enough. Sometimes that happens, but it's just one of those things. We don't want to assume things, especially when it comes to damage prevention. Take the extra step. Don't look for any shortcuts, because they're not going to get you anywhere.
No.
And do things the right way, and there you go. So there was one instance of the importance of making sure you're aligned with the right people, and then, upholding your agreements with each other. So,
yeah, you're spot on. And that kind of ties into what I was saying earlier. When I get those questions and I don't know the answer, once I know somebody that I can trust and I can reach out to, those are so much more valuable to me than just the masses. So,
we get all kinds of questions. We just had one this week. I've got a buddy of mine that works for a valve company out of Collinsville. I saw him at the gym early in the morning. He goes, hey man, where can I get some 811 stickers? I don't know. Let me text MG real quick. And lo and behold, and these are something as simple as stickers.
Right.
Okay? Again, I don't need to be the guy, but I know the guy. He's right there. That's okay. And if MG doesn't know the guy, he can, help point us to a source where he can buy the stickers, and it's okay.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear from him. So if he sees,
I saw him early this morning. He got caught up. He says he'll be reaching out to you later this week. But this is interesting. He works with a lot of gas distribution companies, and they're wanting to create awareness.
Yeah.
Before you dig, so they're going to be putting these stickers on all these gas meter setups. Kind of cool.
That is something cool, and that was accidental. People who are listening to this, you won't believe what just happened. That transitions perfectly into what I wanted to go into, is through this connection, through this network of damage prevention professionals, is being an ambassador for each other's services. Mm-hmm. Man, it is so much easier for me to go, you know what? The Green Equipment Company is a legitimate company that I know knows their stuff. I know their heart, and I know they're always trying to do the right thing. Here's Jason.
Yeah.
And being an ambassador for us, like when we do those joint trainings, or when there's a gentleman who's looking for A11 stickers, that's awesome that he sees the opportunity to go, you know what? Jason knows that these A11 people are legit. Let's get some stickers on there and help that awareness there. And then I don't know how many times I've been called to do training, and I'll do the first training, and there'll be somebody who got trained who's like, oh, well, now I know. And he reaches out to me, and then I set up another one. So that networking, being an ambassador for each other, and being a voice for those that you network with is also really important as well, I think.
Absolutely. It's amazing how it's a it's a small world in a big industry, when you do find the right people, doing your best to raise them up and help them in what their mission is. Again, when you have an understanding of what your why is, then you have a better understanding of what your partner's why is, what your buddy's why is. You want to help them be successful too, whatever that looks like. If it's creating greater awareness across the state in proper one-call procedures and picking up the phone and calling 811 and ticket management, well, then it takes me 30 seconds to mention something about MG and, offering up contact information and reminding everybody that there's a resource that you have at your fingertips that I feel is trustworthy that can give you all this information. So just like you said, hey, I may not know everything about line locating equipment, but I know a guy who's probably does know what you're looking for or can point you in the right direction. And that's great.
Absolutely.
Provided in partnership with Damage Prevention Academy, Okie 811's excavator education program is certified by the Gold Shovel Standard. Upon completion of this training, you will be educated in the regulations surrounding excavation in Oklahoma and the best practices for safe digging and damage prevention. Okie 811 certified excavators can rely on this high-quality online training, which specifically incorporates everything they need to know for the prevention of damage to critical buried infrastructure, as well as increased public and workforce safety. The training will take approximately 2 hours to complete. The training is fully responsive, mobile-enabled, and can be completed on a desktop, laptop, tablet, or other mobile device as your schedule allows. The Okie 811 Damage Prevention Certification is a proactive indication of an increased investment in damage prevention to drive safety, reduce damages, and minimize the risks associated with excavating on or around buried assets. Once you have successfully completed the training and exam, you will receive a certificate of achievement, including the Gold Shovel Standard Seal. To get Okie 811 certified, go to okie811.org/excavation certification.
Well, let's wrap it up a little bit with this information. Obviously, listeners and viewers of today's podcast, we appreciate you. We don't get in front of camera just to speak to nobody. We appreciate your viewership, your listenership. We want you to promote us. If you can, share this with somebody who needs to hear it. To let them know the human element of damage prevention and to be an ambassador for those that you aligned yourself with well within the industry, within whatever professional network you have. Just be a resource for them and allow them to be a resource for you is the best advice I can possibly give. It'll make your work life so much easier, and then you'll develop some friends and mentors in the industry as well. If you have opportunities with your company, if you're an owner or operator of underground facilities and you're looking for an opportunity to get some training with line locating equipment, I highly recommend this guy, Jason, with Green Equipment Company. He will be we'll have his information in the description of the podcast, so you can reach out to him. If there's opportunities for both of us to train your company,
Absolutely.
We'll do that as well. Reach out to me, Okie 811, through our education@okie811.org email address, and we'll set up some training for you, whether I pull in Jason or some other safety professionals to provide custom training to help you with damage prevention, safe excavation as well. With that, Jason, I really want to thank you again. We've had a great conversation as always. I love it that I can just hit record and things just take care of itself as always.
Yeah.
But for the first episode of Digging Deep, I think that's what we just did.
I think we did. I mean, I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like us to circle back around to kind of what we kicked this all off with was the human element and making sure that, we don't get caught up in the statistics, but that we're reminded of each individual, that's impacted by our actions or inactions, in damage prevention. And the story I that I share in all these training classes is real, and it's happened. And I was involved back in early June 2010, I was down in Fort Worth, Texas, and I was at a meeting. And I know you've heard this story, but I want to share this for the viewers.
Yeah.
And that same day, there was a line strike in a nearby town. It hit a large high pressure gas line. Guy was setting power poles and was using a big auger and boom. You know, unfortunately, his body was thrown 200 some odd feet and killed him, which, you know, at first glance, unfortunately, we hear about these things all the time. As you dig deeper, if you will, come to find out that that contractor was based in Oklahoma, about an hour from where I live. About 2-3 months after it happened, I was able to get a little bit of information, and I went up there and approached the company, and I talked to their safety director and their VP of operations and expressed my condolences. Again, the way I make a living is selling equipment, right? The training and stuff I do, that's just part of what I do to give in the industry. And I went up there not to sell equipment, but to approach those guys and extend my condolences and offer to give them training on whatever equipment they had. You know, I come to find out that gentleman that was killed had 7 kids. I mean, that's 7 kids. Now we're at what, 2011, right? So there's 10 years of, you know, we just had the holidays. There's 10 years of no Christmas, 10 years of no Thanksgiving with dad. There's 10 years of no birthdays with dad. That's a pretty tough pill to swallow. Well, I'm not one of these people that's going to be bugging you every month and dropping off donuts and asking you about the sports of this or, you know, fishing or hunting that. But the people I work with know that if they pick up the phone and call me, I'm going to be there to take care of them. So about 3 months after this has happened, I will go and revisit with the safety director, VP of operations. You know, I'd offered to do free training. They said they hadn't had any equipment. I offered to give them information on mine, but also brand X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be involved in training, and I was going to do it at no charge. Well, that's great. Well, 3 months later, they hadn't done anything. At 6 months after my initial contact, safety director's gone. Have a conversation with the VP of operations, meaning to do something about that. 3 months after that, VP of operations is gone. I have a conversation with the owner, meaning to do something about that. About 18 months after my initial contact, my last conversation with the owner of that company was, man, I can't do any better than free for you. I'm willing to make an investment in my knowledge and time to train all your people and be that resource to your people, whether you spend a nickel with me or not. When you're ready to make an investment in damage prevention for your team, some kind of equipment, I'll be right there to make that same investment in myself. Well, unfortunately, I've never heard back from that company. And unfortunately, the owner of that company has since passed. I don't wish any ill will on anybody. But the reason why I share that story is not to shed a nasty light or dirty laundry on that one organization, but to stress to you the importance of why aligning yourself with the right people and make sure you're doing things the right way is so important. Because unfortunately, in this world, there are people that even though they have a fatality of a foreman who had been there several years, who had 7 kids, that will never see him again. They're not always making those same steps and doing what's needed to be done to protect those people. So that's why it falls on our shoulders. So again, not trying to bring everybody down, but that's the reality of the business we're in. So what gets me up early in the morning, what has me answering that phone late at night, is making sure that doesn't happen again. So
exactly,
remind you of the human element and how important what you do every day is, and how much influence you can truly have over someone's life.
Absolutely. It's about that one person.
Exactly.
Not about the industry, not about the company, not about a team, about that one person. We'll make sure they get home.
Let's not be statistics, but let's try and minimize the tragedies.
Yeah. That is awesome. Dude, again, thank you again so much for being our guest today.